The idea of satiety science has exploded across wellness culture, fueled by the hope that eating foods that keep you full for longer can finally help people control cravings, regulate weight, and stop obsessing over food. TikTok creators, biohackers, and nutrition influencers talk endlessly about high-fiber meals, protein-forward plates, and water-rich foods that supposedly switch off hunger and stabilize appetite. The trend feels scientific, almost clinical, because it leans heavily on concepts like the satiety index, GLP-1 signaling, gastric emptying, and energy density. But while some of the ideas behind satiety science are backed by legitimate research, the movement also comes with exaggerated expectations, social media distortions, and hidden risks, especially when people treat satiety as a magic fix instead of part of a much bigger picture. The foundation of the trend is simple. Foods that are high in fiber, protein, and water volume tend to be more filling. Oats, potatoes, beans, lentils, eggs, yogurt, fruits, vegetables, and lean proteins delay gastric emptying and stretch the stomach in ways that activate fullness signals. Water-rich foods like oranges, melons, cucumbers, and broth-based soups also promote satiety by adding bulk without excessive calories. Meanwhile, ultra-processed snacks are notorious for doing the opposite. They digest quickly, spike glucose, trigger cravings, and often leave people hungrier soon after eating. When you view satiety through this lens, the science is solid, and the pattern is one many people have experienced firsthand. But the way satiety science is marketed online often oversells the power of these foods, implying that simply eating for fullness is enough to regulate energy intake effortlessly or overcome deeper metabolic or psychological issues. Social media narrates satiety as a kind of built-in appetite insurance policy. Choose the right foods, and your hunger will behave predictably. In reality, hunger is influenced by sleep, stress levels, hormonal fluctuations, insulin sensitivity, emotional triggers, and even gut microbiome composition. Satiety-driven meals cannot override these variables, and expecting them to do so only sets people up for frustration. The satiety index, often cited as proof of which foods are best, is another area where nuance gets lost. Created in the 1990s, it ranks foods by how full people reported feeling after eating them. While potatoes scored high and croissants scored low, the list was based on very specific serving sizes and extremely limited test conditions. Today, influencers present the index as a universal map of fullness physics, when in truth, its applicability is narrow. Individual responses to food vary dramatically. One person may feel full after a bowl of lentils, another may not. Hunger is not a machine that reacts identically for everyone. There is also a risk that people become overly dependent on high-volume, low-calorie foods in an attempt to outsmart hunger. Massive salads, piles of vegetables, or water-heavy meals may stretch the stomach, but they do not always provide enough sustained energy, especially for athletes, teens, or those with active jobs. Eating for fullness without paying attention to nutritional balance can leave people underfueled, fatigued, or prone to rebound hunger later in the day. Some individuals end up overeating at night because they tried too hard to suppress hunger earlier with sheer volume rather than nutrient density. Satiety science, twisted into a restrictive tool, can unintentionally mirror dieting behavior while pretending not to be a diet at all. Another overlooked issue is the psychological danger of turning hunger into something that must be fixed rather than listened to. Satiety science encourages people to manipulate signals instead of understanding them. Instead of asking why they are hungry, did they sleep poorly? Are they anxious? Are they dehydrated? Did they undereat earlier? Users of this trend often blame themselves for choosing foods that were not filling enough. It reframes hunger as a problem of poor strategy rather than a natural biological cue. This can worsen food anxiety and lead people to distrust their internal appetite regulation, particularly those who already struggle with disordered eating tendencies. The trend also downplays how challenging it is to apply these principles in the real world. Whole food, fiber-rich, protein-focused meals require planning, cooking skills, and access to fresh produce, resources not everyone has. Ultra-processed foods dominate the modern food environment because they are convenient, cheap, and engineered to taste good. Satiety science often assumes people have the time and money to build high-volume, nutrient-dense plates every day, but this simply isn't realistic for many families, students, or shift workers. Social media's polished meal prep videos can make people feel inadequate or guilty for not being able to replicate these ideals. Despite all its pitfalls, satiety-focused eating is not inherently harmful. It can help people stabilize their appetite and reduce reliance on ultra-processed snacks. But the trend becomes risky when it is treated as a cure-all or when influencers present fullness as a guaranteed outcome rather than a complex interplay of biology, lifestyle, and psychology. Satiety science works best when understood as a supportive framework, not a rigid system, not a promise, and not a shortcut to weight management. The truth is that fullness cannot be hacked or forced into perfect alignment. High fiber, high protein, water-rich foods help, but they're only one part of the puzzle. Real hunger regulation comes from balanced meals, adequate energy intake, consistent eating patterns, good sleep, stable stress levels, and a flexible mindset. When satiety science becomes another wellness rulebook, it defeats its own purpose. It attempts to manage hunger without understanding it, and in doing so, it risks creating more anxiety, more guilt, and more confusion around one of the body's most basic signals.